Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Daily Power Boost. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Sunidhi to the stage. Sunidhi grew up as a shy, introverted person who struggled with confidence and hesitated to speak up. After being bullied in ninth grade, she withdrew even further, but in 12th grade, she took a bold step, using her own pocket money to enter a national English competition where she actually won third place. This experience ignited her confidence and showed her the power of stepping outside her comfort zone. In college, she realized that success wasn't just about academics, but about communication and connection. Today, she helps professionals communicate with confidence, grow their networks, and build leadership skills. Welcome, Sunidhi.
Thank you so much for that really generous introduction that you just gave me. And I'm glad to be here.
Welcome to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential, the podcast where your transformation begins. I'm Sean Michael, and each day I'll bring you quick, impactful insights and action steps to fuel your personal and professional growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or someone ready to break limits and ignite greatness, this is your daily power boost to crush obstacles, stay focused, and awaken the extraordinary potential within you. Because remember, greatness begins within. Let's go. My opening question: why would you say professionals struggle with the word no?
About the psychological and the professional factors, there are many more things actually impacting it, like fear of conflict, desire to be liked, especially in workplace dynamics, the guilt and obligation of, rejecting requests, worrying that it may seem selfish, or even when somebody has unclear priorities, they struggle to recognize when a no is necessary. And finally, we have the workplace culture and expectations that we see, right? Some company cultures reward overcommitment. Like it makes it difficult to set boundaries. So that's why I feel like it should be a very important skill to master because leaders who master the art of saying no assertively create clear boundaries while maintaining the respect and trust. The key basically lies in not just refusing, but refusing in a way that preserves goodwill and fosters collaboration. So that's why I feel like this is a very common issue nowadays, but it's also very overlooked.
Yes. In fact, I actually gave a speech at a virtual summit last January called Stop Being
Right.
Nice, and it was about this exact topic. Do you feel that one gender struggles with this more than the other?
I think in some cultures, yes. Like if you think about my culture, I'm from India, and here women are expected to be softer, kinder, or more compassionate. And that's also a very common picture we see worldwide. So a no coming from us is like, oh my God, she said no. So yes, we are expected to say yes all the time. But I think at the same time, in certain aspects, men are also really pressurized. For example, when it comes to family commitments or jobs or the societal pressure of seeming manly, there a man can't say no. Like just imagine a man who is probably in his 30s or and is not having a very stable income or that is not married, they're going to be judged. Like, okay, what's wrong with you? And in those cases, they can't say that, no, I'm building my career. I don't want to. And a woman definitely can't say that because there's definitely something wrong. That's what people are going to assume.
Right. So, this brings up a good point. We're talking about assertiveness here, but how do we draw the line between assertiveness and aggressiveness?
You see, there's a very fine line between it, and it's very understandable that people confuse it. But for me, I have always found that the differences are pretty much crystal clear. I'll tell you why. Let me tell you in 4 points. Number one, aggressiveness focuses on winning. Assertiveness focuses on balance. Number two, Aggressive people will always prioritize own needs over others, whereas assertive people balance own needs with others. Aggressive communication uses harsh tone, demand, ultimatum. Assertiveness uses firm but respectful language. Aggressive communication leads to resentment, conflict, and argument. Assertive communication leads to mutual respect and trust. So to sum it up, if you ask me, assertiveness allows you to stand your ground without making the other person feel dismissed or undervalued. It's when you respect yourself and the person in front of you.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. It is aggressiveness is about, actually, I heard this with one of my accountability partners a long time ago. The difference between commanding respect and demanding respect, right? The assertive commanding, the assertive speaking is a way of commanding respect. Like, hey, I value myself, I value you, so let's find a solution that works for both of us, and therefore we will have mutual respect. Whereas, as you said,
Absolutely.
aggressive communication is more about you will respect my authority.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have Eric Cartman in my head on that line.
Yeah, but it's very apt. It's very apt. And some bosses and managers forget it. They think that I have to establish my authority, not that I have to build it up. It comes from a place of insecurity. Nowhere else. It's just insecurity. But it helps nobody, not them, not the subordinates, not the company.
Right. And it leads to negative feelings, resentment, bitterness,
Dissatisfaction,
dissatisfaction,
all around.
the new term today, quiet quitting.
Ah, yes. Or they might get cancer.
Right. Exactly. And I think it also draws it helps us, like, the person who's aggressive and demands the respect, demands that everybody follow what they say. They love to issue commands like do this and do this and do this. That's a boss. That's a manager. But a true leader will use this assertive communication to bring everybody along to reach the goals.
Yeah.
So, could you share a framework or technique that you teach or use yourself on how to say no respectfully and gracefully?
Absolutely. I mean, there's this 5-step framework that I often talk about that allows one person to say no without damaging relationship. And it's really simple. I mean, once I explain, you will be like, oh my God, I have done this. So it's basically like number one, you have to acknowledge the request. Like, I hear you. I see how important this is to you. Say that. Sometimes we just listen, but we don't say that, okay, I'm acknowledging that you have said it. So first, acknowledge. Second, show appreciation. Like, thank you for considering me for this. This softens the rejection and maintains the goodwill that I'm glad you considered me. I'm glad you thought of me. Then say no clearly and concisely. That unfortunately, I won't be able to commit to this right now. Don't over explain. Don't justify. Clarity is the key. Don't talk about it too much. Just say that I cannot commit to this. You can offer an example that perhaps somebody else could assist you. Insert name over here, or talk about a colleague who's familiar with it more. Or you can say something like, I can help by reviewing the final draft, or I can be available after lunch today. Give an alternative if it is feasible. But don't take it without taking the full responsibility. And finally, end on a positive note that, I appreciate you reaching out and I hope it goes all well. What this does is that you're reinforcing that no is about the task, not about rejecting the person, so that they don't take it personally. So this is a very simple framework. I'll give you an example. For example, imagine saying something like this. It would actually be, I really appreciate you thinking of me for this project. Right now, my workload is full, so I wouldn't be able to give this the attention it deserves. However, I'd be happy to connect you with someone who could help. Let me know how else I can support you. You know what this will do? This will keep the door open for future collaboration without overextending yourself. And that's really necessary.
Yes.
It's really, really necessary, especially the step of not explaining too much or apology.
Yeah. And I happen to notice that it seems like I was picking like A's. Like appreciate, acknowledge, assert, like be an assertive no, or alternate assert or alternative, and even apologize. All A's, no E. As you said, no explanation.
Yeah, no explanation. I mean, I have not come up with an acronym because I'm not very good at acronyms, but I do call this the 5 step secret of saying
Yes.
no.
And
Like,
yeah, and as you said, it's simple. It doesn't we don't need to overcomplicate it. We tend to do that a
absolutely.
lot in life and in business especially. We overcomplicate things. And it brings to mind, I think it was, I can't remember the name, but it was a coach at a college sports team.
Mhm.
And he decided, I don't remember exactly the circumstances, but he basically decided with the team that they would go back to the basics, like focus on the first steps that they learned when they first started playing the game, focus on those, and you know have like a single play for this situation instead of having like a list of plays that they might use. He's like, okay, if this happens, we're going to use this play. If this happens, we're going to use this play. He kept it very simple, and he took a team that had been bottom of the list to, a multi-year championship. Like year after year, they were winning championships, all by going back to the basics and focusing on a simple, like, this is the way we move forward through this. So I thought of that as you were sharing. It's so simple that it almost seems like, some might look at it. It's counterintuitive. That's the word I'm thinking of.
Yes, and we complicate things when it's not necessary. Life is simple. We make it complicated. And when you were telling this story that you just remembered, I remembered something from my experience. And if you don't mind, I'd like to
Go ahead.
share it. So, a few years ago, before I went full time into coaching, I was coaching like part time. I was working in a place and I joined for sales. Okay. And at the time I was newbie over there and I was very nervous because I didn't know all the products, etc. But my manager was this super cool lady who was such a collaborative person. She would always be like, hey, let's do this together. Come on, team, we are in it together all the time. And she would use words like we, together, etc. And I was thinking that, oh my God, this company is so nice. It's such an amazing atmosphere. I'm never leaving, etc., etc. And I was thinking this, and one day I hear screaming. Somebody was screaming at the top of their voice. And everybody's speaking out their doors, what's happening. Everybody's stepping out their cubicles. The other team, who were on the absolute opposite side of the building, the leader was screaming his head off that you all are losers that I have been assigned to me who cannot do a single thing appropriately. And it made me a bit curious. So what I did, of course, office gossip is something that is too powerful. So I decided to talk to a few people from the other team. And I heard that this person, this other leader, he would be very aggressive with his team. And what that led to was that every person in the team was miserable. They were churning out horrible numbers. And the numbers were dropping every day. Even though this leader was actually in the good books of the management and they would get the best leads, he would be like taking the customers out for dinner, spending a lot of company money, but they couldn't crack sales because everybody was miserable. They felt like they were just all on their own. Whereas my manager, you wouldn't believe she would sit with us. She didn't sit in her beautiful glass cabin. She sat with us. She did her lunch with us. She would be like, "Hey, how are you doing? Oh my God, you brought sweets from your home." She would share sweets that her mother made. And that's what a leader is. The assertiveness becomes a part of your personality. It's not about the technique when you are speaking. It becomes you, you become assertive.
Yes. You have to be assertive. I've been really looking at this lately about, who am I being? And from that core, the actions, as you just shared, the actions will happen. If I'm living it in me as being an assertive person, being respectful of myself and others, the behavior, the actions will play out exactly where they need to. And as you were
Absolutely. And
sharing that story, I
if
thought
you
about like how those, yelling and screaming at people rarely gets them to do better work, and
Yes,
calling them losers.
it's a very destructive attitude to take up, especially when you are a leader, because you're in charge of people. They're trusting you with so much, and you cannot be handling a delicate glass ornament with rough hands, and that's what he was doing.
Not if you want to hold on to it.
Nope, it's gonna slip and fall.
What about if there's some pushbacks? So, as a professional and you've established a boundary and the other party is pushing back, they're challenging the boundaries.
See, boundary setting is very necessary, but most people set it wrong. Why do I say set it wrong? Because if you ask psychologists and experts who are therapists, they always talk about boundaries and they will tell you that everybody gets it wrong at the first time. Why? Drawing a boundary, it will keep people out. You're not drawing a boundary to keep people out. You're drawing a boundary because that's your space. You're defining it for yourself. So the number one thing over here is that you define your priorities. Like, if you know your priorities, you'll find it easier to say no with conviction. Like, it's a simple one, right? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Right.
And then you have to be transparent about capacity. Like, if you don't have time, say you don't have time. You have to tell them that I'll not be able to do this justice. It's about commitment. It's not about rejection. And this, it continues on in a team. If a leader is consistently modeling healthy boundary setting, team will start to take and follow suit. They will take up the habit themselves.
Absolutely.
And there is also another thing which becomes very necessary over here, which is non-verbal assertiveness, as in maintain the eye contact, a calm tone, and open posture. You should sound confident, but not defensive. If you sound defensive, it will sound like you're hiding something. You're not supposed to be hiding something.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because some people say, it's been said that our communication is only about 7% the words we use. The larger portion of our communication, the
It's tone and body
the
language.
largest point is tone. They say the largest part of our communication is tone, and then the second largest is, as you said, body position, like eye contact, physiology, right? How are you standing? Are you standing like this, or are you standing open, or are you standing, like you said, in a defensive position, right? Do you defend?
Yeah, and I talk about my trainings all the time that, like, just think about your mom, okay? When you have a bad day at work and you go home, before you say anything, your mom will ask you that, okay, what happened? You don't seem okay. How does she know? Because she's looking at your body language. She knows you. And that's why body language is so important. Or even if you're on a call and you're talking to somebody and they ask, okay, you don't sound right. What's wrong? Tone. So these things matter much more than words because I could tell you the sweetest words in the world, but if it comes out of sync with my tone or body language, it's not going to make an impact,
Right.
or it might even lead to miscommunication.
Yes. Very, very true. I was speaking with someone recently, a client, about body language. And he's like, "Ah, yeah, there's no point in it." I'm like, "Really?" like,
Oh my
like
God,
it's
there's that
so
now.
important. And actually, the latest research shows that not only does my body language communicate to you or to the person I'm interacting with, it's actually communicating to ourselves,
Yes.
right? I mean, if you sit at your desk and you slump your shoulders and you look down and you're like this, how do you think you feel? You're going to feel pretty crummy.
Like, this happened with me. I was taking a coaching session with a person, and it was our first call, and he sat in the call, and I asked him that, okay, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? He started in a very low note. He was slumping, and I felt like he was two steps away from crying, and I was a bit alarmed. So I said that, okay, are you all right now? Is there anything that I can do to help you or make you feel more comfortable? He's like, no, it's just office politics have got me really down. And I was like, okay, will you follow my instructions for the next 2 minutes? He said, okay. I said, sit straight. He was a bit backward. I was like, no, sit straight. Why do you think this company hired you? And Wipro hired him. Imagine, in a very senior position. I'm like, sit straight. Why do you think this company hired you? They're not stupid. They saw value in you. Why are you devaluing yourself? And he was looking at me with wide eyes and he was like, yeah, yeah, you have a point. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I got lost in the fact that today was a bad day at work. And then he started talking
Right.
and then he was
Totally
opening up.
shifted.
Yes. And a lot of people feel that coaching has to be gentle and all. I don't believe in that. If I'm your coach, I'm going to put the truth in front of you, whether you like it or not. So I had to snap him out of it at that moment. Because sometimes we get lost so much in self pity that we
Yeah.
crumble.
Yeah, it's like, I grew up in the era where when I was a kid, our only music was records. And I remember playing the record and it starts just like getting on this repeat, keeps repeating the same line over and over and over. And usually the way we took care of it is we kind of bumped the record player. So sometimes people need a bump to stop skipping.
Yeah, actually reminds me of CDs.
CDs would do the
Now
same
CDs, you
too.
cannot
Yeah.
play them. Wipe it again. Wipe it on your pants and put it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets stuck in a loop. And it's, as human
Yeah.
beings, we can easily get stuck in that loop. We like your example, he got a bad part of the day, the situation, and forgot about all the good. Yeah.
Yes,
Sometimes we
and
need a kick in the butt, don't we? Some people do.
yeah, that's the actually perfect word. I was not using it. I was being nice, but that's the most apt way to say it.
Yeah, because I think in coaching, you make a very good point. In coaching, or part of being a good coach is looking at the person who's sitting in front of us, and getting to know them, and learning, yeah, I need to use something a little stronger. I need to take, as the old saying is, I need to take off the kid gloves, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, yes, they might need a soft approach, but sometimes we need a kick in the butt, you know,
Whenever, whatever is necessary.
and that's a good coach. I just finished reading the book The Ultimate Coach, and some of the stories in there were very, touchy, like, oh yes, I felt so warm and cuddly. And other times, like, he was on top of me with his hands around my neck. I'm like, wow, okay. But it made a huge impact. And the coach in the book, he knew, he could tell what that person needed at that moment. But this perfect segue. Where does emotional intelligence tie into assertive communication?
Think about it. We are talking about being assertive, right? Do you think you can be assertive without being emotionally intelligent about yourself?
Yeah, you got to start with yourself. Yeah.
No. You come first as a coach
As a
and as
professional.
a
Yes.
leader, or I think as not just professionals, especially people who are responsible for something. You have to be aware of your own emotions. It's not just professionals. I mean, have you ever seen a mother how alert she is about her children?
Right.
Our neighbor Popular recently gave birth to two puppies, beautiful black, shiny little puppies, and she is tracking everybody with her eye. She's the calmest Rottweiler I've ever seen, and is tracking everybody, even the people who raised her, were with her through the birth, because she is intelligent enough to know that anybody could be a threat. Likewise, we need to be aware of our strengths, weakness, opportunity threats. We need to know our own selves inside out before we go and talk to somebody. We need to know the situation. We need to know the person in front of us. Otherwise, if you are not emotionally intelligent, you will not be able to grasp the situation or how to handle it correctly.
Yes.
I mean, there's something I always tell in my training that if you know the person in front of you, whatever information you have, a little bit, a lot, whatever it is, you'll be able to anticipate what questions, what demands might come from them. So that's why emotional intelligence comes. You're able to judge the person at what might their requirements be. You'll be able to judge that do I have the bandwidth to take on another task? These questions can only be answered if you are emotionally intelligent enough.
Right. And if you can't manage and be intelligent about your own emotions, how can we expect to do that with others that we're interacting with? As you said, it's not just, yes, it is very important as a professional, especially if you're in a customer facing role. But and as a parent, as you said, I was just talking about this morning, how becoming a parent, being a parent, changes your thinking. You look at the world differently, everything around you. You look at yourself differently. So definitely, parent. I think just being a human being, right? If we learn to be more emotionally intelligent and self-aware, everything around us will change. I love the Gandhi quote: "Be the change you want to see in your world." And I think of it deeper. Like a lot of people, kind of talk about it on the surface. What I read it as is like, get inside you square. Be emotionally intelligent, be self-aware, learn to manage yourself, lead yourself, and then that change will appear in the world around you.
It's what happens. You cannot control the outer world. You cannot control other people. But you can control yourself. So why not focus on which is actually in our control instead of wasting time?
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the serenity prayer that says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And an alternate version I heard, God grant me the serenity to change the people or to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change those that can, and the wisdom to know the only one I can change is me.
What was very interesting.
Because you're right. What happens in the world, we have very little control over. But what happens internally for ourselves, what do we think about it, what meaning we give it, we have absolute control. So my next question, how can a leader encourage a culture where teams feel safe to set their own boundaries?
Very simple answer. They have to do it themselves first.
Yes. As we see the
They
change
have
we want to
to.
see.
Yes, and unconsciously, we always end up copying the people we feel are in higher authority. When we're in school, we imitate how the teacher is writing. When we're in college, we imitate how our professor is probably doing the diagrams. In office, we copy the way our boss is probably talking to the customer, and we are like, "Oh, that's impressive. I'm gonna do that too." So we copy, we imitate, and that's how we learn in the beginning, especially. So if a boss, if a leader, if a manager wants to set, well, have it, they will have to set the goal that they have to do it themselves.
Right. You've got to model.
One.
Right. Model what you want to see. It's the most, like you said,
Yes,
it's the simplest and it's the most effective way to elicit change in an organization is be who you want them to be.
yes, and it's not just about be who you want them to be. It's about letting them know that this is permissible, this is
Right.
allowed. Because half the time people are scared that okay, I might offend somebody. The fear of offending and fear of guilt and conflict keeps so many of us restrained in small boxes.
Yes.
Leaders are the only one who have the key to set them free.
Yeah. It's something that a long time ago was something that held me back, being afraid of conflict and rejection, but learning to model it, and like you said, look at what others are doing. It opens the door that it's acceptable. It might even, if we're really effective as leaders, we don't even just demonstrate that it's acceptable. We model it that it's encouraged. Right? I know my wife, she was the proverbial, everybody that came to her with requests, yeah, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. Her manager sat her down at one point and said, let me pull out your schedule. I want to see your schedule. And she looked and she's like, no wonder you're overwhelmed. You've got all these projects you're working on. You are not allowed to say yes to another project until you get this down. And my wife's like, what? No. What do you mean? But it shifted, it shifted her so much because then she knew she could, not only could she, but she should say no sometimes. It's okay. And I saw it also working with a client. They made a comment like, I couldn't do this because, and I said, who said? Who says you can't? Well, then there's the justification, right? Well, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's not healthy, right?
Yeah, like in these cases, I always tell people that use the simple mantra that if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Well, and one of my coaching mentors, Rich Litvin, he says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Oh, well, I'm not that wise.
And I love it. If I can't say yes with absolute certainty, like this is going to benefit me, it's going to empower me, it's going to bring the goals of me, my team, etc. If I can't say definite yes, then it should be a definite no. If I have, instead of maybe, I think we use maybe too much. Possibly.
I always kind of feel like maybe, possibly, we have weak words. I tell people not to use them. I actively check people when they're attending this in the sessions that don't use that word. Don't put yourself in a dilemma that, oh my God, maybe this, maybe that. Why?
It's like try.
Yeah, it's not even try. It's about that the fact that you're afraid of committing. Yep. To what?
Right. It's leaving a door open. Right. I'll try to meet with you. Maybe I can do that.
Eat your cake and have
Right.
it too. So
Yeah. And an ancient book full of wisdom, I won't name the specific book, it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's extremely wise advice. If it's not a hell yeah, then it's probably a hell no. So, in your opinion, what is a small change someone could make today, right now? A lot of times, like, there's a vision of, oh, yeah, I want to be more assertive. I should be more assertive. I should show myself more respect. As you said, a lot of times we're afraid of offending and we're afraid of conflict and, damaging our self-esteem and all of this. But the idea of becoming assertive, it's like, oh, wow, it's so big. I can't do that. But what's one tiny step that somebody could take today in your?
it will sound a little silly, but I find it a very fun exercise because people never ever guess why I'm making him do this. I tell them to get a notepad and a pen. And I tell them, list out all your priorities. Okay, and number them from the most important to the least. And everybody is like having, family, career, this, that. And then I'm like, no, these are generic terms. Go specific.
Right. Deeper.
If you need, take it like a whole sentence. And they do that again. And then I tell them, what are the top 10? Read them once. Strike out 5. What will be the top 5? These are the 5 that are your priorities. Now you know that everything else is less important. So whenever there's a chance that, something is coming up and one of these 5 are also coming up, choose one of the 5. That's it.
Straight up.
To be assertive, you need to know your priorities. Very, very necessary. Emotional intelligence, as you said, you need to know your priorities because otherwise you will not have the conviction. You will be confused yourself that why am I saying yes to this, no to that?
Right.
You need.
Yeah. I talk about this all the time. You got to know your priorities. What's important to you? As one of my mentors said, every one of us is full of unlimited potential, but without a target, it's wasted.
Absolutely. I equal these sentiments completely.
Yes. And an exercise that I do with these priorities, you can do it with priorities, you can do it with your values, is, so they've got their list of 10. We can go through and compare, like, okay, priority 1, priority 2. If you had to choose, which one? Just go with your gut. Don't stop and think about it. Just off the top of your head. What's the one? So then they say priority 1. Okay. Priority 1 and priority 3. Which one? And we just go through them one by one like that. Basically, for leading.
Yeah, and the trick is not to think too much. Not to
right,
think
because
too much.
that's where we get in trouble. We start thinking, well,
justify. And we justify and we are the guilty feeling comes up that, oh my god, am I gonna dismiss it? So you have to be quick, you have to go with the gut because that's who you are, not what you're trying to pretend for the world.
Yeah. As the old saying says, who were you before someone told you who you should be?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we've heaped all these things onto ourselves, either from direct commands and influence, or, as you said, modeling our teachers and our parents and our leaders and bosses and stuff. And they don't align with us. They're not true to who and what we are and what we want in life.
Yeah. It reminds me of something really funny. It's a statistic I've observed. So I train and coach leaders and professionals, yes, but sometimes I work with really gifted children who are in their teens and their parents know that, they are in government-sponsored gifted children programs, so they have been noticed somehow and they want to gain more leadership skills. I work with them as well. And you wouldn't believe this. These kids, the first time meeting them, they grill me. They have so many questions. They have just unending number of questions about how it's going to be done, what's going to be done, why is this not working, why is that not happening, and so many questions. Easily 1 hour goes away. But when I'm working with an adult, they are like, no, I don't have any questions right now. I'll look over what you have sent and I'll get back to you.
We could learn a lot from kids.
Always. This kid has the inhibition that I'm going to be judged for asking. So I tell people that if you're going to ask a stupid question, make it in the session. I will love that question because the question is probably not stupid. You are the one who's considering it stupid.
Right. We judged it so because
Yeah, and
some
these teens,
people
they
and
don't
some.
care. They're like, if I am sitting here and I am important, I'm giving you my time, make it worthwhile. And I love that attitude.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes working with teens can be really nerve wracking, but so much rewarding as well because you literally see them blossom.
Yes. Well, and you make me think that probably one of my greatest teachers today is my 7-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't know if he realizes it, but like you said, watching him and, adopting a childlike curiosity. And if you have a question in your head, ask it. There is no such thing as a silly question, a stupid question. He doesn't even like me to use that word.
What's the worst that can happen? Somebody will say
Right?
no.
Well, and as I always say, I tell people, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yes, you have to ask.
Right? And again, I think it goes back to those fears, right? That fear of I'll be seen as less than. If I ask that question, it's not that the question's stupid. I think a lot of people are thinking, if I ask that question, I'm stupid.
Be stupid. What's wrong with being
Yeah, be
stupid?
silly sometimes.
Who told you to be yes?
You know, I recently
It's a
heard,
very hard
I
work.
recently did this. I went to a trampoline park with my son. My wife went and did her own thing. And I went to the trampoline park and acted like a kid, bouncing around. And he's like, "Daddy, I want to go on that slide." And here I am at 56 years old, getting on the slide with my kid, and it's a sharp slide. You come down and you fly up in the air and land in an airbag, and it was a lot of fun, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't remember my dad ever doing anything like that with me, and he was younger when I was 7, and so that's where one of the ways he teaches me, like, I learned so many lessons from interacting with him, from watching him. Yeah, it's powerful. Kids are a bundle of knowledge if we just open our mind and listen.
Yes, because nobody told them you can't do that. As long as a kid is not having those restrictions and those blockages put on its path, they're free. And inside, we all are like that as well. It's just we put on masks to look impressive
Right.
and end up looking like
Or we've created those self-imposed limits for various reasons.
absolutely.
Oh, I could never do that. How do you know? Have you tried?
And then you do something and you think that, oh no, I was being impulsive. You were not being impulsive. You just didn't let your inhibition stop you for once.
Yeah, and what's wrong with that? As long as you're not
Yeah.
jeopardizing health and safety of others.
Yeah, that's why one of my um I had a friend who became an alcoholic. He was from a good family, very well to do, everything was great. But he suddenly became alcoholic and we were not that close. So when I asked him that why do you like drinking so much? And he was like, I don't feel the pressure to be something I'm not when I'm high.
Mm.
And that was a very sad moment for me because I am completely a teetotaler and I don't drink at all. So I thought that it's very sad that people need substance to let them feel or let them be who they are. That kind of made me more adamant about coaching because I wanted to help people with that. And one of my first clients was that friend because I told him that give me 6 months. You can drink, but you cannot drink more than once a week. That's the condition for 6 months. And after that, if you want to continue drinking, I will not stop you. But as a friend, do this favor for me. And I'm glad to say he's completely sober even now. He got married recently.
Amazing. Well, and I think that's a great place to wrap it up. But I do have a final question for you, Sunidhi.
Yeah.
What's the one big takeaway you would like listeners to absorb from this talk today?
I want people to understand that saying no is a leadership skill, no matter who you are and what you do. Saying no doesn't make you unhelpful, it makes you more effective in what truly matters. So people have to remember that every no to the wrong thing is a yes to the right thing. That's
I
what
was
you have
thinking
to
the same
remember.
thing. By saying no to some things, it gives us the space to say yes to the better things, more valuable
Absolutely.
things. Thank you so much, Sunidhi, for your time. It was a pleasure to interview you today, talk to you about this and the power of saying no and being more assertive. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and look forward to sharing more wisdom from others like Sunidhi here on Daily Power Boost. Thanks again. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential. Remember, transformation starts with action. So take today's insight, make it your own, and awaken your inner potential. Because remember, greatness begins within. Catch you tomorrow for your next Power Boost.